So I want to share a little bit of history with you. This APAC that is just pretty much owns all our politicians was originally called the National Zionist Federation, and they were a charitable organization that did good stuff, but then they got political. After Eisenhower got on David Ben Gurion about the Suez Canal crisis in the 50s, and they started the Ramona or Dimona reactor, which was making enough plutonium to make one or two thermonuclear booms a year. So JFK wrote back to Ben Gurion and said, no, stop it. I'm trying to get a nuclear proliferation treaty signed, and you're out here making these, trying to become a nuclear power. And they lied about it. Said, oh, it's not a react, And he said, you're gonna let us inspect this every 6 months, or we will cut off our relationship with you will end. And when he sent that letter to David Ben Gurion, instead of answering him back, David Ben Gurion retired. And the Israelis were furious. He's like their Davy Crockett or George Washington. Okay, even though he's objectively an awful man. If you read about some of the stuff that they did, it's just gross. It's just absolutely gross what they first did. Like, oh my God, not just the Nakba. Like when they prioritized U.S. settlers over the ones from the displaced camps because they knew U.S. settlers would come with assets, and they knew U.S. settlers would be more violent and be more willing to take land than the people from Europe. So they kept the people in the camps longer and concentrated on bringing Americans over. And then once they had enough Americans over, they did the Nakba, okay? And then they when they were bringing these people from these camps, okay, these people had been in these camps a couple of years. They were healthy. They looked great. And so they come on a cruise ship. They're clean the whole time. Then 2 or 3 days before they get there, they say, okay, everybody stop showering. Get your oldest clothes. Look like you're crazed. You got to act like you've been, and completely put on a show for the whole world that was broadcast around the world by all these refugees coming. They'd been 2 years in a displaced person camp. They were healthy. They were sane. It was all bullshit. Okay. And then when Kennedy got in office, he wrote David Ben Gurion a letter saying that your Ramona or the Dimona reactor I'm trying to get a nuclear non-proliferation treaty going. If you continue to do this and make this reactor without us inspecting it, we will cut off all aid and we will reconsider our relationship with Israel. Okay? Within 6 months, he was unalived. Now, they kept the inspections going until Nixon stopped in 1969. But, and another thing you need to know. The Jewish mafia started they were the inventor of sexual bribery. Shit, I can't say that word. I'll just change it in the thing. And Meyer Lansky invented it. He had a picture of J. Edgar Hoover on his knees in front of Claude, his boyfriend or whatever he was, and in a dress. And so what they did was they had what was called the Blue Room that had film and audio, the whole thing. And then they'd have these kinky, dressed up as women or whatever you want to do, wild parties, orgies. And guess what? They're all filmed. And then, you get invited to one of these, and then 2 weeks later you come into your office on Monday and there's a manila envelope on your desk of you in a very compromising position with the letter saying, we'll be in touch. That is how they operate. That's what Epstein's operation was. That's why these politicians are so rabid about Israel. Look up Hillary Clinton's interview on The View when they asked her about APAC. The first 2 seconds, she had a look of abject horror and terror on her face, and then she got it together. But you could see it for a second. She's terrified of them because they've got something on her. She wrote Epstein's plane. Bill wrote Epstein's plane. Okay, there's so many powerful people, and that's how they're controlling this country. Okay, is because they've got compromise on a bunch of our politicians, and they have a ton of money. They got there's one producer that has been known to donate like $250 million maybe it was 250,000. I don't know. It was an outrageous amount to people's campaigns. And he's like the kingmaker. You got to go see him. Bill Clinton saw him. He won. George W. Bush saw him. He won. You know, I forget his name. He's a Hollywood producer. And he's a one-issue person. That place over there. You know, Israel has a right to exist, but it does not have a right to do any of the things it's doing now. And if it's going to continue to behave like this, then I believe its right to exist is in an existential threat right now. Because you can't continually do things like they are doing without repercussions. And I think it's very funny that all these Americans that went over there, because they're going to unalive brown people, right? These guys that saw Inglorious Bastards and had this fantasy. And when Inglorious Bastards came out, somebody called it. Somebody said the next time that place over there is in a confrontation, they will be extra brutal because of this revenge fantasy that Inglorious Bastards is. And they were right. They were right. And there are so many Americans that are going to be called before the ICJ, and I love it for them. I just can't wait till that guy in New Jersey who was, was that one picture I saw where they had like 5 blurred out, but 5 people on the ground that weren't around anymore with the foot on it and a sniper's rifle on his knee. Yeah. He's going to spend some time in The Hague or wherever the prison is for The Hague. And a lot of other people will, unless they stay there, which I hope they do, because as far as I'm concerned, you take up arms and you put on another country's uniform, you are no longer American. You are either a mercenary or you are a citizen of that country. Take your pick.